Do you like movies and games also? This and so much more, they all know. Vice, Pyro, Lotus and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 169, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I am your host, Lotus Prince, and this is...
Dracologist.
Welcome. And during this podcast, we're going to discuss particular gaming companies that we enjoy, and if they have series we enjoy, little tropes among them, or just general style these guys have, all that kinds of stuff. So, Dracologist, did you want to bring up a company that you were interested in, or shall I go first?
Let me think.
Okay.
We're talking about game companies that developed or published games, and they made several series. And thinking that this might get a few rise on it, but for some reason, the old. And I'm not talking about the current, the old Electronic Arts.
Oh, old EA, was amazing.
Well, I do want to say that they was kind of a bastard even back then, but maybe a little bit less so.
Okay.
But I did like the Need for Speed series. Need for Speed 1, 2, 3 was one of my favorite racing games. And of course, my brother was a big fan of the various sporting games like FIFA and such.
Oh,
of
sure.
Course, we can say, of course, that the current year edition is something even worth touching with a 10-foot tall board held by someone else.
Yeah, I mean, current EA still makes AAA titles, but people are starting to wonder how much kind of soul is left in them, depending on which franchise you're talking about. I mean, we talked about this off the air, but the current NBA and FIFA games are in some aspects literally copy pasted. They reused old assets for them, and it's I don't know about this.
we talked about it off the what do you call it, off air?
Yeah, off the air.
And off the air. So, but we're talking about something else. The other two companies I kind of like. There was three that made up my childhood. Mm-hmm. Apogee.
Oh my god, dude, Apogee's so good. And
Epic. And I'm talking about, again, the old Epic, not the current one that is trying to break into the game market with a fucking rocket launcher.
Actually, what was I don't know if I'm very familiar with old Epic. What stuff did they have?
They had a lot. They had interesting stuff like Jill of the Jungle.
Oh, that was them. Okay.
Sargon, which was a Jill of the Jungle remake. There was a little shoot 'em up game called Kilo Blaster. They had I know one of my favorite games from Epic is Tyrian.
I haven't played that, but that sounds familiar.
Tyrian.
Yeah, that was the shooter. Yeah, there we go.
It's a legendary game.
Was that the one where your guns or your lasers just get ridiculously gigantic once you power them up a bunch?
Yeah, if you want to know, for those who are listening, if you want to thorough review of Tyrian, go watch the Ross Game Dungeon episode of it.
And this is Tyrian.
Tyren.
Okay. That one, I haven't seen much of that one. I remember in the arcades near me, I was more likely to find Raiden, Raiden 4 or something.
Let's see what they made a game called Zone 66, which was a top-down jet game.
I don't know that one.
They made a game called Silver Ball, which was a pinball game.
Okay.
Oh, they made, of course, I completely forgot, Jazz Jackrabbit, which was...
Oh, hello. That was a classic.
Yes, excellent game, excellent platforming game.
And it's available now, by the way. It's on Steam. It's been on Steam and GOG for a couple of years now.
Yes, and even the second game, which is even better. It's basically Sonic with guns.
Yeah, you know,
If you,
like that game, I had forgotten like how it played when I was a kid. That game is fast. Like that game is crazy fast. I was surprised by it.
you can, yeah, and it's fun. And the second game just increases everything about it.
Wasn't there some sort of like, it wasn't a third game. It was like some sort of spin-off or something, like some Christmas
Th-
version of
That
one
was
of
a
the
3D
games.
game. That was a 3D game, but nobody talks about it so much.
I didn't even know about the 3D game, but like wasn't there just like a Christmas level or set of levels or something? There was like some extra thing.
There was a lot of little expansion. Like you know how in old games could be sliced up into pieces and could be sold into like
Oh yeah,
there was a
episode one was
shareware and the
shareware.
episode
Yep.
and the rest was available for everyone.
Yep.
And you could and because of that you could add new levels to it. And
Yeah.
like so many games had like expansion that were some sort of holiday theme.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I remember, yeah, that is always how it was. You could play like levels 1 through 8 of a game or whatever, and you beat a boss, and it's like, okay, that's the shareware. Like for the full game,
Yep.
call in this number or like write to this
Yep.
address or whatever. That's
Yep.
why like
And
boxed copies of Doom 1 are so rare, because you had to like order it in.
yep.
Whereas Doom 2, the whole game is just on store
So
shelves.
going through even more epic games, one must fall 2027, which was an excellent little uh, beat one-on-one versus game where you not just pick a fighter but you also pick a mech,
Oh,
and
hello.
it was a big giant robot fighting game,
That's pretty
and it had
great.
one of the most biggest sort of rave music background for the power plant. I think people would again know was Freeman's Mind, one of the episodes when like if those people remember programmers, what are they thinking?
Yeah. The Freeman's
There
Mind
was
was
a
pretty entertaining. For those who don't know what that is, Half Life's protagonist Gordon Freeman is a silent protagonist at all times. Freeman's Mind was a YouTube series that was basically a let's play of Half Life. I forgot if it was one, but certainly two.
one
It was one.
Half Life.
I was, it
It
was
was Half Life One.
I'm confusing it then, but it was a
The
let's
two
play.
comes now.
Okay, but it was basically a let's play of Half Life One, with just endless talking, but like as Gordon Freeman, like, whoa, these enemies are tough. Oh, what are they doing here? How did that happen? But like, it's
Yeah,
actually
like
entertaining. It's not
it's
like I'm doing
basically
it.
it's basically a stream of consciousness through a character.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's like if Gordon Freeman could express his thoughts, maybe this is what they would have been. It's a clever idea.
Uh, there was a game called Radix Beyond the Void, which was a sort of knockoff of Descent.
Okay.
Um, there is Seventh Legion, which is sort of a real-time strategy. Jazz Jackrabbit 2, of course.
Oh,
And this is
speaking of
something.
speaking of Jazz Jackrabbit, by the way, real quick, that was one of the older Cliff Basinski games.
Hmm,
Like he worked on that.
back then, he was all the epic mega games.
Yeah.
He just started to get a little bit with the Gears of War.
Yeah.
Gears of War when things started to I feel a little bit dull for epic mega games.
Yeah.
But here's something I think many people would recognize: Unreal.
Oh, okay, there you go. I forgot that was Epic. I think I was reminded of that
Yup.
a few weeks ago,
Unreal.
but I totally forgot.
I honestly would like to see if Epic would bring back the Unreal franchise.
Yeah, Unreal was a game
because,
changer.
Yeah, like back then it was considered like the two titan of Quake 2 and Unreal clashing.
Yeah.
Like which engine was more powerful, which engine was more pretty. And yeah. So and like while Quake had like Quake 3, Unreal Tournament had an entire slew of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, they even made Shadow Complex.
Oh,
Or
no
did they
kidding. Oh, no, of course they did. I remember that was one of the earlier games that they offered free on their store. I forgot that was them.
And
'Cause that's how I
of course
first heard of
again,
it. It was available for nothing.
Again, they made their last fun game was Bullet Storm.
Okay.
If you ever, and this is one when they basically bite people can fly in half and ate half of the developer team of that company. And those who don't know, people can fly are the people who made Painkiller, one of the best first-person shooter ever existed.
Painkiller 2 was okay. 3 I really didn't like. 1 was fantastic.
Yep. And if those who remember those who know the current day of Epic probably are just retching on the top of Fortnite.
Yeah, I mean, Fortnite's immensely popular. I don't care, but I never care about multiplayer-only stuff. I know there's a single-player campaign, but whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, this the early MS-DOS games of Epic were fantastic. Moving on to the other games, I think people know id lineup, or at least I know some people know games like
everyone's Daikatana, obviously.
Commander Keen, I wanted to say, because this was their game actually.
Yeah.
Like before Apogee, they picked it up from their hands somehow. Of course, there was Doom.
Yeah, Wolfenstein 3D.
Wolfenstein. Just a little bit of help on remembering, if you allow me. Of course, the two big head of.
Yeah, I mean, I just mainly remember Wolfenstein 3D and Doom and kind of Commander Keen. I never really played Commander Keen, so that one's not fresh in my mind. But yep, he's there.
They also made Catacombs, which was even a precursor to Wolfenstein. It was the first sort of 2.5D game.
What was the game called again?
Catacomb.
Really?
Or Catacomb Revenge of Avis.
I did not know about that one. Oh, I forgot if this was id. Did they do Hexen? Or was that Raven?
No, that was Raven.
Okay, because I know Raven did Heretic, but yeah.
I think it was a small sort of this subsidiary.
Okay.
Is it called subsidiary?
No,
I don't know.
Right.
It was a small branch of id.
Sure.
And of course, they made Quake, which was also an interesting game. Yeah. And lately they made Rage, and they kicked back with, of course, Doom 16 or Doom 4.
Yeah, that was like id with Bethesda.
Yeah. So we mostly know it for the Commander Keen,
Wolfenstein,
Doom,
Quake.
and Quake.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely have a thing going with their first-person shooters. And the later Wolfenstein games, I don't know if it was involved, but people generally like the later ones too. There's been talk about like the Youngblood one, but the other Wolfenstein games people have quite enjoyed.
Youngblood feels like another, what do you call it? Another skin of the fox, or another skin of the cat. I don't know whether it's just feels like just another one.
Oh, and yeah, I don't know if there's probably some different expression for that in America, but yeah, just another one. I don't know. There's whatever it is, it's not going to my head right now, but I know what you mean. I mean, there's an expression that says there's more than one way to skin a cat, but that's not what that's used for.
Yeah, it's like it feels too dull compare to that. And finally, there is Apogee, or currently right now called 3D Realms, who made. They made a whole slew of platforming games, actually.
Yeah, including Duke Nukem. Like, not Duke Nukem 3D, Duke Nukem.
Duke Nukem 1, I played Duke Nukem 1, I played Duke Nukem 2, which I never finished.
Same with me, actually. I finished 1, but I think I used codes for 2, but I think I beat 1 for real.
The second, Duke Nukem 2, the last episode has a level I never could beat because it was a little bit of a bastard.
Yeah, the music is fantastic in that game, by the way.
Huh, I never heard of it, but I need to look it up.
In Duke Nukem 2, there's some pretty good tracks.
I know they made the game Biomenace, which was a rather gruesome, but
surprisingly gruesome for what it was. That was a game that, like, it's not Duke Nukem, but it looks and plays very similarly to Duke Nukem.
Actually, I do want to. It has one of the most manliest. Is a hero named Snake Logan.
That's right. Snake Logan. You get this big mustache.
Big mustache and a mullet.
Yeah, that's back when that was the coolest thing ever. I don't know how you remember that guy's name.
I don't know, but it was a very interesting game.
It was. You had to pick up like.
Ammunition for your
I was a
weapon
really
and
little
stuff.
kid. I didn't even know what the word meant at the time. But you picked up a shard, which was basically just a key card. Like there were certain doors that required different color shards. I just wasn't familiar with the concept at the time because with Duke Nukem 2, you would pick up like an actual key or something, or you would destroy X of a certain object and then the door would open. So it's like, you got a shard. I'm like, what do I do with this? And it was like the same principle anyway.
Yeah. They made the game Monster Bash, which was also a little shareware game.
That's
It
right.
it was again a shooty platformer game where a little kid in pajamas and she's in baseball hat
Yeah, it was
destroying zombies into gore with a slingshot.
Yeah, it's like Monster Bash and the Graveyard Dash or something like that.
And there was Alien Carnage, also known as Halloween Harry.
That
This
one, I
was
think I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about it.
It was a little platformer game where you run around as a soldier rescuing people from not the aliens and zombies.
Okay.
And it had mixed reviews because the game had interesting ideas, but it weared out its welcome a little bit too in a few levels.
You know, regarding Apogee, it's kind of funny. They released like the only shooter I've ever actually
Raptor Call of Shadows.
Yeah, had any desire to play. Yeah, Raptor Call of the Shadows, because I just kind of grew up with the shareware. It's funny because like Vice and Pyro are like very knowledgeable about shooters. I can't speak for Pyro, but Vice had not heard of Raptor when I brought it up to him because it was like I was on DOS. Like, who expects shooters on like DOS and Windows? He was like, "What is this?"
Means that allow me to just memorize it because I just looking at through these tiles and the memories are flooding back.
Yeah.
So Blakestone, Alien Gold.
Oh, I love Blakestone. Blakestone was fascinating, by the way. It's an old shooter, kind of like Wolfenstein 3D. But what made it really interesting is that when you beat a level, you could go back if you want, because the start of every single level is the exit to the level, because you're on an elevator. You need to go through the level and find the key that unlocks the next floor and go into the elevator, but if you want to go back, you can. And not only that, but there were scientists throughout the game that if you talk to them, some of them might give you power-ups or whatever, but the whole game is you're in the enemy base. So the ones who help you are like fellow infiltrators, but if you talk to one who goes like, "What are you doing? Get the hell out of here," then like
if suddenly throw a gun on you and you have to shoot them down.
Yeah, you always get a freebie, but if you talk to them a second time, they'll shoot you. So like, if you know they're bad guys, you could just shoot them. Another way you could tell, this is lame, but you could save before interacting with the scientist and then just shoot them. If your score goes up, good for you. If your score goes down, you killed an ally.
But like, it's what easier to just talk to them.
Of course.
And interestingly, like it wasn't. One of the interesting part was all of the weapons use one ammo. Of course, the best weapon was the big, just BFG style is a mega gun in the end. But
yep. But the machine guns are also great.
One very creative and really unnerving looking monsters.
Yes. Oh, you know what I also found interesting is that you don't have a melee weapon. You just have the shittiest gun. But what I thought was interesting is that your level 1 gun with infinite ammo is silent. So it's the weakest gun, but you could actually, like, enemies hear you, just like Doom, if you attack, but if you use the silent gun, then you could actually take out a guy from behind or something and move on without being noticed, which is not really common in that era.
When you encounter something with like the pod aliens, which are like massive hulking slime-spitting monsters.
Like even in Doom, if you punched, the game would be like, "Oh, you attacked," and everyone hears you.
Yeah, that was something later can be solved in the code, but back then it was a little bit.
Yeah, I remember I would enter a big room with 1 million guys, and I'm nowhere near any of them, and I just throw a punch, and the whole level just wakes up. It's just kind of silly.
Doomslayer's Easy Punch has a certain smell to it. The enemies recognize it and flew into a panic.
You are damn right.
What else was there? Blakestone. Oh yeah, just wanted to Blakestone. Like, there were some like levels where you had to enter some sort of reactor, and like it had endlessly spawning those plasma elementals, which were
that's right.
Nightmare.
Yeah, that sucked.
They also make a little game called Hocus Pocus, another platforming game.
Oh, I did not know about that one.
You play some little wizard dude who have to complete a lot of little levels. Like, basically find an exit type of platformer game where you
Sure.
collect power-ups and such.
Okay.
Mystic Towers. If I wonder if this is what I'm like. Oh yeah, this is a Baron Baldric game. It's a lovely isometric type of game where you have to manage your hunger and drink and such while trying to try to clear out a tower from invading monsters. It's a very good, very interesting game, very good game. I recommend it if you can find it on. I think it's available on Abaddon, various Abaddonware games.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is Wacky Wheels, which is
Oh, that was them. Oh, Wacky Wheels is great. It's like Mario Kart. It was like a Mario Kart.
It's an iteration of Mario Kart or Donkey Kong Kart, and you are shooting hedgehogs at each other.
Yeah, you play as various animals.
Yeah.
I always like the shark. Like, I don't even know why. I just, whatever. I like the shark.
You too? My brother liked it too.
Yeah. I think that game might be available on Steam and GOG, which just, I couldn't believe it.
There is a remake of the game, but what I heard, it's terrible.
Okay. Speaking of remakes, there's a 2010 remake of Raptor, which is kind of cool too.
There is Boppin, which was a little interesting puzzle game that has a story on its own. I'm not going to tell it. Go watch the review of, again, Game Dungeon of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is the legendary Rise of the Triad. It shows how much Apogee loved their fucking giblets.
Yeah, it looks like a Doom game, but there's like conversations, there's RPG elements, there's goals, like there's like missions.
Are we talking about the same game?
I'm thinking Strife. I'm sorry, I blew it.
No.
I blew it.
That was Strife was a Doom engine game. Rise of the Triad had its own engine because it was kind of between Wolfenstein and Doom, mechanically wise. Like it didn't have the more advanced. It was very tile based.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you looked at the map, it would be seen very tiled how much it was very tile based. But it had one of the most versatile murder rocket experience ever made. It literally had a magic baseball bat that shoot exploding baseball balls.
Nice.
You could turn into a dog and bark people to death. You could engage Godhead mode, which was the hilarious, where you could fire homing projectiles that could clear an entire room and go into the fucking mouse hole to easily find the enemies.
Nice.
Terminal Velocity. Terminal Velocity was...
Oh, I remember that.
That was of... What is it called?
Wasn't that a first-person game where you're like flying?
Well, what do you call it? It was basically a futuristic jet simulator game, like a flying simulator combat game.
Sure.
It was just I think.
Was it like Forsaken?
No, it wasn't like Forsaken or Descent. It was more like playing, I don't know, Strike to Zero, if that says something.
Okay.
It was like a sort of this like X-Wing versus T-Fighter, only easier.
Okay.
It wasn't like playing didn't require a lot of fiddling with it was just more arcadey.
Okay.
Now this is an interesting one, Realms of Chaos, if that says anything.
I've heard the name. Oh, but real quick, before going into that, didn't Rise of the Triad also have like some sort of remake?
Yes, it had, and I played it, and it's fun, and it's fast, and it's kooky, and it's like they took everything of the old game and made it into a proper version.
Nice.
So Realms of Chaos was again a platformer, and I'm fairly sure you and Vice would really like this game. The main mechanic, it's a fantasy-based sort of action platformer where the main mechanic is that you control two characters that you can swap between, like similar to Trine without the physics mechanics. One of the characters is a warrior with a sword, and the other is a sorceress who can cast fireballs. I think the mechanic was that the sorceress needed little pips of energy that you could pick up like various treasures in games to cast her fireballs, and the warrior only had a sword to swing, but that didn't require any kind of ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Xenophage, was Alien Bloodsport, which was a sort of this beat 'em up game. Well, not beat 'em up, one versus fighter, where you fight various very weird-looking aliens. Death Rally was one well-known game, which was a top-down action sort of one of the first sort of what do you call it? Combat combat racing games.
Okay.
Like it literally had guns on the cars, and you could buy spikes on the front bumper.
Oh, sure.
Find mines and similar stuff. It had also like mechanics like you could sabotage other racers. Like the the highest ranking player in the match would start with less health. If you would do, you could actually borrow loans from shady business people, and they would actually say like, if you're not paying back, then you will be sabotaged.
That's pretty awesome.
And actually the funniest thing that Duke Nukem is in it as a racer.
Wow, I did not know
you
that.
Can actually you could select his avatar as your own. And there was a rumor back then that if you write in your name as Duke Nukem and you select his avatar, then your cards get all the weapons from Duke Nukem 3D.
Actually, that reminds me. Speaking of that, Duke Nukem also had appeared in other versions of Bulletstorm. I think it was called like Hail to the King Edition or something like that.
Yeah, that was Gearbox trying to shovel in Duke Nukem into another franchise. They put their hands
but still, Duke Nukem did his cameo.
It was a little bit forced. Now here's an interesting Star Gunner. This game, I think this again is something what Vice really likes. Is an interesting little shoot 'em up game. Apparently, one of my brother friends did, I think, unraveled its code. I don't know what it did to it. I don't remember much, but it's a good little shoot 'em up.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is Shadow Warrior. We know that game.
Oh yes, yeah, not Shadow Warrior from today, but like the old style Duke Nukem looking Shadow Warrior.
And from the next we moved to the Windows, Balls of Steel, which was a really good pinball game. Like Vice talks about how he likes pinball games. I'm not really into them, but Balls of Steel was excellent. Like I could play them for hours. And they made of. It seemed to say that they made the Max Payne games. They made the game Prey, the first Prey game, I think.
Apogee.
And yes.
Wow.
And of course, lately they made a new franchise with Bombshell and Ion Fury, and the new game is coming out is Wrath Eon of Ruin, which apparently coming out in 2020. So I'm a little bit miffed about that because they promised this. They promised that this summer, I think.
Oh well, it's coming anyway.
Well, at least I have more time for Doom.
Of course. I don't think there's much time for me to go into like a series I've been following for that long. I'll just quickly mention like FromSoft because I just like playing their games lately. I mean, I've already said a bunch about the Kingsfield games, but they've also made a Shadow Tower, which looks kind of like Kingsfield, but I don't think it's going to be entirely similar. They're pretty they were, like at the time, more, I think, well known for their Armored Core series, which has gone all the way into the PS3 era, up to Armored Core, I want to say 5.
Was Armored Core is the games with the crazy extreme control add-ons?
Yeah, the
joysticks.
Yeah, the Armored Core was. Wait, what were you asking?
Like the crazy joysticks that you could get for it.
Oh, the absolutely insane giant fucking joystick. No, that was Steel Battalion.
Oh.
Okay. Although FromSoft did work on the the 360 Steel Battalion. Although I think people didn't generally like that one. The original Steel Battalion, I don't remember which company that was though. But Armored Core was a mech game though, so like, you're in the ballpark. They also did some I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, like, I only played mech game Earthsiege 2 and tried to beat Star Siege, but never could. So yeah, but I'm still saying that a mech-based Souls-like game is needed.
Oh, that'd be interesting. But they also made some like weird 1 or 2 off games, like Evergrace and like Eternal Ring, which is not Kingsfield, but it basically is Kingsfield as like a spiritual successor. But then actual Kingsfield 4 came out.
Bit clunky magic creation system.
Yeah, it took me some time to get used to the magic creation system.
And the very scary Wasp Queen.
Yeah, I think I mentioned Evergrace. They did Lost Kingdoms 1 and 2 for the GameCube. That threw me off. More recently, I've been playing Metal Wolf Chaos, which is another mech game, but it's just like a run and gun. It's a very casual experience with a great sense of humor. The actual game is alright, but Richard, Michael. But unlocking the craziest weapons in that game is insanely hard. Like I really think that platinuming this game has a chance of being tougher than platinuming like a Soulsborne game. Because, like, one of the trophies is get all weapons. And it's like, okay, that's common. But, like, a bunch of the weapons are unlocked by, like, S-ranking certain aspects of the game across the entire game. For example, like, it'll save your top scores for each category when you beat a level. So, like, you don't have to do everything in one shot. It's a cumulative thing. But one of the things that I actually got really recently was fire under 2,000 shots across the entire game. So it's like, oh.
Ouch.
So the good news is a lot of levels you can just stomp your way through. Like, I beat, I think, like 2 levels without firing a single shot. But, man, the level where you fight Richard, that took some doing. I had to find ways to snipe him, which saved me an ungodly amount of ammo. Same goes for Fight House. You actually can hit it with your sniper cannon, but you gotta aim it just right or you'll blow up the structure beneath it. So I spent like... I spent like... I forgot, like, maybe a couple hundred ammo instead of like a few thousand. Like the fight against Richard, I spent like 300 something ammo instead of like 1100. So I actually ended up getting a cumulative score of like 1400. Like I freaking nailed it. It was great. There's also like take down X number of enemy missiles as they fire them at you. The one that scares me the most, the two that scare me the most are like beat the game in under X time. I think it's like 45 minutes cumulatively. And the other one is suffer such and such amount of damage or less. That's going to be an absolute nightmare because there are some levels that just punish you.
Yeah.
Like the final boss, if you don't get out of the way immediately, you just get like overwhelmed by like lasers and missiles and stuff. It's not a good time.
Some of the achievements kind of remind me of an achievement from Axiom Verge where you have to beat the game with less than, like, I think 20% completion on item collection.
Oh no.
So you can only pick up only a few weapons and zero health upgrades and such.
That sucks. Although some of the stuff you were mentioning though, I forgot what game you said it was with, where you had like the really like goofy weapons, but Metal Wolf Chaos offers some goofy stuff. Although I will say, one trope across almost every FromSoft game is that there's some kind of moonlight weapon, usually moonlight sword. Like in Kingsfield, it was a plot item. But like you can get a moonlight. It looks like a sword, but it's a bazooka. You could get like an MLS, which stands for Moonlight Sword, for your mech in Metal Wolf Chaos. I was told Evergrace has some kind of moonlight sword. The Dark Souls games have them as boss weapons. Demon Souls had a moonlight spear. And this is embarrassing because I actually beat this game, but I forgot. But 3D Dot Game Heroes, because yes, that's FromSoft. Apparently that has a moonlight weapon. That's pretty fantastic. I should stream that at some point. But Metal Wolf Chaos has some dumb weapons, dude. There's like the AFB grenade launcher, which stands for American Football, and it fires football-shaped grenades that bounce like footballs, so they're bouncing. It's like really erratic. There's the joke weapon for the flamethrower is the freeze thrower. It's just an ice flamethrower. One of my favorites, though, I recently got this, is a missile launcher. It's called Shark, and it shoots sharks. Like you can't do much better than that.
I think it, like, just to interrupt a little bit, like in Saints Row 3, I think there was a gun that summons a shark, And in the game, Armed and Dangerous, there is a gun that shoots a little baby land shark that
Yeah, I remember that.
eventually matures up and just chomps the enemy down.
Yep.
So.
And there's also like a shotgun that's called like Party Cracker, which I think is like more of a British thing. Americans would say Party Popper, but it shoots like confetti and like cash.
Do you know what I think it is? When Kindergarten Cop, when he breaks in the "I am the party pooper."
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, so FromSoft is a good time. But at this point, I think we should get on to comments and questions. So, regarding fan comments, Living Corpse had a couple of comments. One of them, this is talking back about the Ozaru in Dragon Ball Z. He said, if you think about it, the great ape from Dragon Ball can be a curse. You turn into a giant monster who shoots beams through your mouth, but Goku and Gohan never received the training Vegeta and Nappa had to retain their sanity in that form. Goku even killed his step-grandpa in that form. Yeah, it's basically like old-style werewolves. Like, you just wake up one day and, like, you've killed people and you have no idea.
Yeah, and you're only elevated to a kaiju level.
It sucks. And then Living Corpse also said, oh, you had to remind me of the Silent Hill HD port. Not only was it a mess, like all odd fog effects, and they removed the original voice actors from 3. Yup. And they were, from what I've heard, they were going to for 2 as well. But he fought for that. But it's only 2 of the original 4 games. I consider myself a Silent Hill fan, despite not having played any of the games yet, if that can be a thing. Previews of the first movie was how I learned about the series, and I looked it up online. I've been wanting to play them for years, and wanted them to be part of a Halloween marathon I've been trying to start up on my channels for a while now. But it seems like I'm going to have to spend over $100 buying old systems and copies of the first 4 games to do it. Ugh. Yeah, it feels bad, man. Silent Hill 1, I don't know if it's on PSN, but 2 and 3, I think it's just like HD collection now, unless you want to find the old retro box. Same goes for 4. You just gotta like find an old copy of 4, I think. Which is
let me check something from Justice No One.
2, 3, and 4 were on PC, but I think 2 is like difficult to get running properly now. Actually, 4 was how I experienced Silent Hill, or PC was how I experienced Silent Hill 4. I never owned a console version of Silent Hill 4. 2 was pretty ubiquitous. It was on PS2, PC, and Xbox. 4, I think it was the same. I forgot if 4 was on Xbox, but I want to say it was. But 3 was only PS2 and PC. So, like, if you wanted an Xbox collection, then too bad. You know, it's like Fatal Frame. Like, 1 and 2 were on Xbox, and then 3 just wasn't. Like, 3 was PS2 exclusive.
Honestly, I would like... Do you know what I'd like to see?
Yeah.
Someone would take the Silent Hill gameplay and made Paratropic into a game with it.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Paratropic is just a short sort of walking simulator experience style game.
Okay.
But it has a very weird sort of setting with like... Yeah, you have to see it, and like it's sort of... I don't know, I think I can't explain it. You have to look it up.
That's fair.
Paratropic.
Anyway, the only other comment was actually yours, Dracologist, where you were answering a few of my questions. Where you said that the blacksmith tribe in Zero Dawn might be like Nords or Vikings. West of
like I think like there was a Roman Empire style.
Yeah.
There was the sort of this slight of semi-Indian sort of.
Yeah, that was like the tribe your main character comes from.
Sort of Indian Celtic tribe, and the last one was sort of this Nordic tribe.
Yeah, fair enough. And then you also said that West of Loathing had Cowpuncher as a warrior and something like Beanmancer as wizard, which is just so stupid. For Rapture or
the whole game is so stupid.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. And you said for Rapture or Columbia, you have Vertigo, so like Columbia would not be your jam.
No.
Yeah, Drowning is not better, but Rapture held together surprisingly well, even in Bioshock 2.
Yeah.
And you prefer the Roaring Twenties over the period of the Bible Thumpers. Both cities are escapable, but Rapture was led by a visionary and a genius, and not a complete nutter. That is true. Columbia exists because you're like, fuck you, I'm making my own city with blackjack and hookers. Whereas Rapture kind of was that, but the guy was like... The guy had like a vision as opposed to like... I'm just an asshole and I'm going to make my own city the way I want it.
Yes.
And then you said, I see your Bioshock broken utopia and I raise you one crazy Soviet science wonderland from Atomic Heart. Oh no.
Yeah, that's a game. Yeah, that game is coming out sooner or later.
Oh no.
If the developers and the publishers stop fucking up. I don't know if you saw the trailer. It's crazy. Like there is a scene like where you, like the entire landscape, like a grass field, and like the city behind it is waving like it was on waves, and like there is like weird red veins are growing out of they're growing all over the place, forming various shapes. There are like these long like blobs of tentacles, steel tentacles that like made from water. It's it looks very weird, very interesting.
Nice.
It's
Anyway, anyway, as for the
kind of like
I'm sorry.
it's kind of like Wolfenstein. If it was instead of Nazis, it would be Russian, Soviet, crazy science.
Gotcha. Now, as for the question of the week, Insane Buffoon asks, "What do you think is the most underrated video game console?" That's kind of a tough one.
The PC.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's fervent debate about PC though. If we're allowed to do old stuff, I might go with maybe like the Saturn, because like that was just kind of swept under the rug back in its day, and also it was looked down upon because it pushed 2D games a lot. It wasn't so hot with 3D, and people were like, "Man, who needs 2D? 3D is the way of the future." And so they're missing out on a bunch of really good looking stuff, because Saturn, its 3D is some jank, but like it knew what to do with 2D. Even if you're not a fan of the actual games, they had gorgeous 2D art. They tried doing the best they could with their 2D options. And so like Golden Axe the Duel is not a great fighting game, but it's like arcade perfect and it looks freaking gorgeous. So stuff like that, like I kind of just like Saturn's not the greatest console, but I think it is underrated. It's not a terrible console. It's just like nobody heard of it or cared at the time.
There is a console that has like XG like 12,000 or something. I don't know. I don't remember what it was called. I know one of the Castlevania games was on it.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about. I forgot what it was called, but yeah, it was some like it looked kind of like the Spectrum.
It was like it had two bodies, I think.
Yeah. Oh, what was that called? I don't know, but like yeah, it looked kind of like the ZX Spectrum. It's like very old style looking graphics.
What I heard, it had really good music chip.
That I don't know about. Now, like, that's one of those games that, like, nobody heard of. Or one of those consoles, I think, that a lot of people haven't heard of. But, like, was that a kind of PC thing? Like the MSX or something?
I don't know. Hold on, let me...
I mean, that's certainly underrepresented. But was it underrated? Was it, like, a good console, though people said it was bad or something like that? Because I don't know almost... I do know which one you mean, but I don't know, like, anything about it. I'm going to see if I could find that. I see, yeah, family disk computer system, but that's not what I'm looking for. MSX2. There's arcade stuff, Game Boy. Where is this thing? This is like impossible to find. There's Super Nintendo. Oh yeah, the Sharp X68000.
Yeah.
It's a home computer, so it's kind of like the MSX. It's one of those. With 1 megabyte of RAM and no hard drive. God damn.
Oh, yeah.
And the last model had 4 megabytes of RAM and an optional 80 megabyte hard drive. That's freaking old school, man. I remember first hearing about gigabytes and thinking, like, what would ever need to be that big? And now it's like they're not nearly enough. Now people have their PS4s and they're like, what? Only 500 gigabytes? It's like, oh my god. I would have like had a heart attack if I heard about that back in like the 90s. Like, how many megs does this take up?
Yeah,
where like King's Quest V was on like 6 discs and they're all like making up a few megabytes.
I mean, the pain of having 500 megabytes is just that, and you have to constantly delete your old stuff or burn it onto a CD so you don't lose it.
Yup. And now, like, I remember when I was in college, the game Fear, like FEAR, like the abbreviation.
The Monolith game. That's another company we could have been talking about.
Oh yeah, but like
interesting easy series of games.
But I remember first hearing about that game and learning it was like 4 gigs, and I was like, what? That's insanely huge. Like, it blows my mind. And now you have like Phantom Pain. It's like, what was it, like 80 or 100 gigs, and it's like, enjoy downloading that all night.
I know that Doom is like around 50 or 60 gigabytes.
Yeah, it just amazes me that a Doom game could be that big when like the old Doom games were like microscopic in size, because it's like, look at them.
But like up then we now store like almost lifelike textures and models with incredible amount of data, sound.
Oh, of course. It's just funny to me that like Doom would get this big. Like, I remember like even the music in some games. Like, I think it was like Titanfall 2. Like, the music was like half of the game's file size because it's like uncompressed or something. It's like, damn.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, I forgot if it was Titanfall 1 or 2, but like the music was about half the size of the download. It's like, oh geez, that's some hardcore music there.
Yeah, like apparently they did it in FLAC or something.
Yeah, it must have been. Whereas usually you'd expect music to take
even better.
Yeah, like a lot of times music can fit onto like a few CDs. It's like, that's all you need. How much can a CD possibly hold? And now it's like just gigabytes and gigabytes. Like, damn, dude. Like, it's Titanfall. How much music could it possibly have? I don't know. I just tend to picture that game being more ambient than anything else. I don't know. But yeah, and you know, like it's not really like, I don't think it's a thing anymore, but like during the big console wars in America between the Genesis, or otherwise known as the Mega Drive, and the Super Nintendo, there was like heated debates over it. Really, the Super Nintendo was, I think, the generally higher quality console, but the Genesis really could legitimately hold its own. It has a completely different sound chip, so if you want to talk about music, then like it's basically apples and oranges. Like, the Genesis is a great aesthetic, and like the Super Nintendo is better at sounding like orchestral, like at the time, but the Genesis had like those old like kinds of sounds. But like, if games called for that, it could really make it work. It sounded fascinating. And
I'm waiting for someone to use like all of these console sonic chips to make an orchestra out of them.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And by the way, like I linked Dracologist this earlier off the air, but like, what I recommend you do if you want to hear Genesis sounding like at its best is look up Thunder Force 4. It's a shooter. Look up the name of the track, Metal Squad. It's like, it's the closest to like hardcore guitar sounds that like the Genesis could make. It sounds freaking amazing. Also, the Genesis, the first game released on the Genesis was an arcade port. I mean, it was Altered Beast. Like, it's not quite arcade quality, but the fact that you could have an arcade game in your own home, like, that was pretty crazy at the time. Not to mention, even though Mario is like a way better game than Altered Beast sprites are huge. It's like new next generation graphics. Like, move over, Nintendo. Even though, again, Altered Beast was not going to save the Genesis, but when you didn't know any better, pretty mind-blowing at the time, and the Genesis had more than its fair share of awesome games. So I wouldn't say the Genesis is underrated, but like, it's certainly not the most underrated, but I would say it got more flack than it deserved back in the day.
How much love the Saturn got?
What was it?
How much love the Sega Saturn got?
Well, the Saturn. Actually, that's a good point. I don't know if it was necessarily underrated, but I don't know how many people had it because of just behind-the-scenes sabotage before it was going to come out. But even then, it was heavily overshadowed by the PS1. And wasn't that the year? I think that my memory might be a little hazy, but I think that might have been the year where Sony's entire press conference at E3 or Tokyo Game Show or whatever it was, the guy just walks out onto stage and says, like, the price of the Sony, it was either $200 or $300 or whatever. It might have been $200. He just walks out and he goes, $200. And he just walks away. That was the whole fucking thing. And it's just like, whoa. Like, that is like the sickest of burns. Because the Saturn was going to be relatively expensive for its time. So, like, that was Sony's, like, ultimate, like, slap back. It was kind of like E3 a few years ago where the Xbox One
Xbox?
was just coming out,
Yeah.
and they were like, maybe you can't trade used games or whatever, and like Sony didn't have like a one-liner for the Xbox, but like most of its
video, I know.
Yeah, most of its press conference was basically, you know, all that stuff you heard about Microsoft, we're not gonna do that, and that was all that like
Yep.
that was all I really needed. Like they had one of the sickest burns on YouTube that I've seen in a while, where
Yep.
it was a step-by-step tutorial on YouTube. It was like how to play used games, or like how to like have a friend play a used game on their Sony PlayStation 4, and it just shows one guy handing his copy of the game to another guy, and the guy goes, "Thank you," and the video just ends. It's like, oh shit, like, it was freaking vicious. Oh, that stunk so hard.
Instruction wasn't clear and stuck into ceiling fan.
Like, you don't really have Sony and Microsoft fighting with, like, just pettiness the way that Nintendo and Sega did back in America in the 90s, but, like, that was an example of that, though. That hit pretty hard. That was definitely, like,
Blast
active
processing
shade.
For Lotus, blast processing.
Yeah, well, yeah, Sega and Nintendo had so much sniping at each other. Like, yeah, they made Nintendo made fun of Sega for blast processing. Sega does what Nintendo don't. Like, you don't really get that today, but that video trading thing on YouTube from Sony was freaking shade. It was amazing.
I like the three big company back then was Nintendo, Sega, and Atari, right?
Atari was not on the level of the other two at the time, though. It was really Nintendo and Sony.
Sega.
Excuse me, what the hell was that? Yeah, not even close. Yeah, Nintendo and Sega. Wow. But,
did I say Sega or did
no,
I say Sega?
I said Sony and you said Sega. But yeah, it was really Nintendo and Sega. Atari was kind of out of the game by then. Like, you're not going to have a Sega Genesis next to, like, an Atari 7200. It's just like, if you just look at screenshots of both, it's like, dude, come on.
Interesting.
We didn't really have, like, an Amiga or Commodore. Like, they might have existed in the country, but they were not here what they were in Europe.
I think because many people brought in like Commodores and Amigas from the like in Europe. This was more easy, like it was more versatile, more useful for people, rather than having basically a game console for the kid. Because even if like I think 90% of the Commodores like used for games.
Yeah.
Although I do think like I've seen some sort of like internet cartridge for the NAS that allowed you to connect to your bank account or something.
Oh yes, that was probably some like Japanese only thing. They had a lot of accessories for the Nintendo that no other country got because they were like really esoteric. It was like following the stock market and stuff like that.
Regardless, the Commodore was fairly versatile. Well, it was a home computer. It could do many things aside from video games.
Yeah.
Like you could code, you could write and things. And even if like, I'm thinking that if they would just put all the hardware, like truncated down to more performance and less versatility, what kind of console would came out from that?
Yeah, right.
Because Nintendo consoles and Sega consoles used cartridges.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, like those were fairly durable. Now, the Commodore used floppy disks, and we're talking about the old school floppy disks, where it was like two pumps put next to each other. They were large plastic, and they were called floppy disks because they were floppy.
Yeah, they were literally floppy.
They were very flexible, although it was not meant to that you had to be tying them into a knot.
Yeah.
But they were surprisingly, they had the durability. It was just that they don't put it next to anything magnetic, too overly magnetic.
Yeah, I remember that was always like, even when I was in middle school, that was like the biggest thing. Like, for the love of God, do not bring a magnet with you to the computer lab or this and that, because it'll just wipe everything.
Yeah, but otherwise they were fairly well usable. And one of the interesting about floppy disk that they had two sides, like a backlit disk. Like you could flip it around, and like sometimes some games were like, please insert disk 2, or in other games, please flip the disc, the floppy
Yeah,
disk
side
around.
B. Like Nintendo didn't like the Nintendo in America did not have that, but the Famicom disk system would sometimes have games like that, like flip over to side B.
So yeah, honestly, like I'm not very well versed in consoles, so I can't really say. Like I can only see, only look at what I saw,
No, of course.
but I so I can only speak about these old Commodores type of game
Sure.
computers and the Amiga, and I can have to tell you that like Amiga has like the most adored, like utmost giving fan base. Like if you there is like you can if you show that like checkered red and white ball somewhere, you can always expect that someone will yell Amiga from the background.
Nice. And Amiga, by
Like
the way, has the same sound chip as the Sega Genesis, so you get that sweet style of sound if that's what you're looking for. I mentioned Weird Dreams before with the Commodore 64. I think that might have been off the air, but Commodore 64 has some sweet music. The Amiga version of Weird Dreams is also very interesting. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Like Weird Dreams was on a few systems, including DOS.
I know
but
that
DOS's
like
sound is
for
garbage.
because like I know that for example the just wanted to quickly say, and I'm falling over my words. The Commodore 64 music chip is called SID or SID.
Okay.
The sound integration. What is it called? I can't remember right now that, but yeah, it was a well known, well defined music chip.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, I think that about covers things pretty effectively. So, that's the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions, as well as comments. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own on the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. And finally, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And if you're interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting involved on Discord conversations with me and other patrons, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me on Skype, Steam, and on Discord on Layer of the Crocoscore and on Castle Saturn.
All right, then. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, everyone.
Good evening.